Labour MPs are really anxious and very unhappy about this. It's becoming a test of the Prime Minister and the Chancellor's authority. At Prime Minister's questions yesterday, Rishi Sunak used the contrast between the cut for 10 million pensioners and the extra money for relatively well-paid train drivers as his main line of attack against Keir Starmer. Now, originally, there wasn't going to be a specific vote in the Commons about this, but under pressure from the Tories, and frankly, in order to publicly shackle their own backbenchers to this unpopular hard decisions measure, there will now be a vote on the pensioners' cut on Tuesday. A clutch of Labour MPs have signed a motion begging the government to think again. So the politics of this are getting very interesting indeed. And our political correspondent, Aggie Chambray, is here to talk it all through. Aggie, the first and most obvious question is there going to be a big rebellion?
Well, it's actually not a very simple answer. So when I started speaking to people about this, it sounded like they felt they had to rebel on this. As you mentioned there, lots of Labour MPs are seriously unhappy about this.
Their postbags are full of protests.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And I think that is a big part of it. They are getting so many messages from really concerned constituents. But you'll remember, because we talked about it a lot on the show, that just before summer recess, there was this vote on the 2-child limit cap. The SNP put forward an amendment and 7 Labour MPs voted with the SNP and they were immediately stripped of the whip. And so because of that precedent and because there is a significant whipping operation underway and people are feeling, Labour MPs who are unhappy are really feeling the strength of that whipping operation, many of them feel if they were to vote against the government, they would be stripped of the whip. And I was in Parliament this afternoon and I saw one Labour MP literally begging another Labour MP not to even abstain because they said, if you abstain, you still might lose the whip. So people are seriously worried about how strong this whipping operation might be.
So, in terms of the range of responses to the problem they have, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, and other ministers could have given ground, could have said, well, we're going to listen to you, we're going to moderate the policy, we're going to find ways to get money back into pensioners' pockets, on the one hand, or they could have gone full throttle disciplinarian at the other. And it sounds like they're in the latter part of the spectrum rather than the former.
I think they are doing the former to an extent. They are talking about the fact that, pensioners will get more money next year. But in the kind of pure Commons theatre, I suppose, of it, it does sound like they're very much doing the latter. And I think MPs are feeling nervous about that. And one was saying to me this afternoon that they thought the kind of new frontier was going to be abstaining rather than voting against, because they felt if they voted against, they're at risk of losing the whip. So instead, they said they thought there could be tens. The number they gave me was 40 people abstaining as opposed to voting against. And they felt like it's symbolic anyway. It's not like this government is going to be defeated because of their majority. But people are really, the words that are used are sort of stupid. Someone told me of an MP in tears. People say they absolutely hate this policy. And, someone was saying the money that will be raised by this is just not worth the political pain. And I should say, of course, Sir Keir has said, they have had to take tough decisions to stabilise the economy and repair the damage. And they have talked, of course, about that 20 billion.
Pensions are going up more than inflation because it's going to be on the earnings bit of the triple locks. So there is that. But nonetheless, a very, very... And it's about the personal authority of the Prime Minister and the Chancellor. If they lose on this, if they're humiliated in any way on this, then, frankly, the next year's politics are going to be badly damaged for them.
Exactly, and I think it will become much easier. We're going to conference season, of course, if they get through with a very, very small rebellion, and then they go into conference and say, well, look, we were backed by all of our MPs. But it's a dangerous approach to take because it only works for too long. And we, of course, talked before those summer about those 7 MPs stripped of the whip for 6 months. What happens to them? Well, it sounds like if they were to vote against the government on Tuesday, they would never get the whip back. So what do they do as well? So we talked about that at the time, Andrew. We said, they have got, those MPs have to vote with the government because otherwise they will just never get the whip back.
And we had Jeremy Corbyn on the show only last night saying, my little door is open.